You don't need to know a whole lot about soccer to understand that the US women's national team played particularly bad against the Netherlands, especially in the first half. But I don't think there's a reason to panic. If anything, I think this is probably more of a reason to celebrate because there are a lot of tactical changes rolled out during this match, and I think the team weathered the storm extremely well. Welcome back to Busy Watching Women's Soccer. I'm Bridie O'Toole, and today we're going to go back to the old school style film breakout and just slow things down a little bit because there is so much detail for us to look at. One thing that we know Emma Hayes is doing for sure is trying to layer tactics in slowly. So as the ball transitions here, from US to Dutch control, I want you to watch how players are going to spread out. And I think this is showing us that for one of the first times, they're using a man-for-man pressing system. So everybody's going to start scattering here. We can see people finding their roles, their matchup. And it's for that reason that I think Niswanger over here, I don't think she's too high at all. I think she is trying to match up with this player here. Coffee looks like she's trying to match up here, but the other thing I will say, I'm not 100% sure on what Coffee and Albert's roles are. I'm not sure if they're playing man exactly the same way. It would make sense if there's some variation in what they're doing. I do think this is very clearly Coffee's mark. I think it was very clearly Davidson's mark. This one over here becomes a lot less clear who was supposed to pick that player up, and that's the difficulty of using such an intense man-for-man press. It becomes very difficult, the coordination, consistent with what we've seen in other matches, the ball being in the wide area is a pressing cue for the US. Now, I think there's three potential positive outcomes they could have off the press. They could win a throw. They could create a turnover in the wide area like Ryan does here. They could create a turnover centrally. Ryan does a great job to influence the type of turnover that she creates. Fantastic pass in, but we're going to see the timing, chemistry, connection. Everything just feels a little bit off offensively. Throw-ins, there were 8 of them in the first 10 minutes of a match, which is incredibly disruptive. It doesn't really let you build flow. You can't settle. You want to play in this very intuitive state, and it's so hard to do that when you're starting and stopping constantly. It did slow down, but Dutch, I think, came so prepared. They did such a great job at understanding how to use physicality to disrupt the US, how to use their own press against them. And again, we're starting to see here how choppy this match is and just kind of the lack of chemistry. It was just starting and stopping constantly. This throw, not even the same one from the last clip, so it really was problematic. Now, this ball doesn't get one in the air. I think this was kind of a running theme from a night two. And we can say, hey, the Dutch are taller, they should be winning all the balls in the air, but it's just not that simple. And we saw that from Japan in the Olympics. I think this particular instance is not terrible defensively. What is a bigger issue here is a defensive to offensive transition. So, Roosevelt takes a look here, sends out a really ambitious ball that gets turned over. I think this is a case of, trying to stick to the game plan when you haven't really completed enough passes or feeling enough comfortable to even really execute the game plan. Now we're going to get a look here at the US's base resting defense, which is the 4-4-2. It's consistent with what they've been using since the Olympics. And it's very nice, right? You're very neat. You got your 2 up here, you got your 4 up here. What we are going to see is how the use of the man-for-man press disrupts that defense. And this is what I think is causing the difficulty for the US. It's this new added layer where their defensive structure is not as tight, not as neat because of the press. So out in that central area, we didn't really see much pressure. Lavelle here kind of pulling up a little bit, but I actually think she may not have gone in with as much intensity as she's supposed to. We see Yasmin Ryan there on that other side, pretty heavy in pushing up. What we have here is another defensive to attacking transition. It looks a little bit better because of where it's occurring. There's a lot more space in the US half this time. I want to take a minute just to look at the offensive structure of the defensive unit. It looks very similar. I mean, it is the same. It's the same as what they had against Iceland, which is a change from the Olympics. But we have 2 center backs here, our left back, our right back, and our defensive midfielder in line with one another. So you essentially kind of have this like split back 5 when you're building out. This is important because it's going to be changed a little bit later. But again, the US are using something that they're not super familiar with. So we're starting to see some of the building, the connection, but, is this crazy that it's not working out when they're using a different defensive system, slightly different offensive system? No, there's been a lot of changes. Transition moments are where I think a lot of the issues were. So this one, offensive to defensive transition on the turnover, a little bit unclear what Coffee is supposed to be doing. Niswanger definitely needs to be where she is to match up with her mark if we're using this man pressing system, but I will say I think part of the problem she's been having, firstly, this matchup was a really big size mismatchup. You don't want your smallest player on one of their biggest players. There's not much she can do about that. But I think the body language has been a problem for her, and we can see, you know, she's side facing this player here. It's not really a position of strength. She comes in early for that tackle, loses it, and now we've got a very big hole on the U.S. left side. Great stop from Nair. I mean, she was just made to work all night long. And the Dutch here, right, it's just aggressive. And now we've got this numbers mismatch on the side. That's fine. I think the US do a good job not playing into that, not making it worse. But again, it's just US can't get hold of the ball and it's making it real painful. This time we actually are going to see the ball get one in the air. That's great, but it's not that easy to keep it. Sam Coffey had a really good game, by the way. I think it was just a couple moments here and there. I mean, everybody had him. It was tough, but you know, this is just not good enough. There's so much physicality in this matchup. Lavelle just allows this player to push off her and just walk away. Another change that we've seen tactically is much more use of Alyssa Nair, having her use her feet more, having her distribute more, really play as an extra defenseman, defensewoman. I think she did a really good job with that. They certainly made her work her last match out, but we're also now going to start getting into that territory of who's got who am I covering? I think Niswanger is coming out correctly. It looks like Horan's got her mark covered, but it's, you know, things like this where we see Coffey and Albert going to essentially do the same role. I think Coffey makes a good decision to come and step up there once she realizes Albert's trying to take her job, but it's crazy. It's so choppy and messy, and the US gave away so many corners, and this is a very big corner that they gave away here. One reason that I am so confident the Netherlands watched a lot of film is because of this corner. It was master planned to exploit the US set piece defense. So as this player comes out here, it's indicating that this actually could be a short corner. We might swap for this player over here. And so Fox comes in to make sure that there's coverage, man for man, man for man. We're going to see 4 players in zone, 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 and then Albert and Shaw are going to move into the man coverage section. We're going to see that Albert is matched up with goal scorer. Niswanger over here. Davidson, I was surprised to see her in the man coverage, but trust me, Emma Hayes knows what she's doing. Now, the whole point of these players in the man coverage, in my opinion, is to delay. Delay, and then you want these people that are kind of picked for the zone to actually get up in the air and clear the ball. That's what I'm expecting to see. That's what I would hope to see. As this call comes up and she's indicating that it's either going to be near post or far post with that arm, Fox is going to start tracking back, and she's probably going to look to set up around about there in zone. So as this ball comes in, we see runners get into the box, ball's far post, goes in, and it looks super duper easy. Now, there's way more to it than that, but for me, it looks like Albert probably didn't delay her mark enough. She really lets her, this is the thing, she gets beat coming out. And so sometimes when that happens, you know, they're going to stop and they're going to pull back, and you're going to feel like, okay, great, I'm ahead of them. Because I am physically ahead of them, I am now in a better spot. That's not always the case. So it's just kind of getting played a little bit here. But the other thing, right, is Davidson doesn't get to her girl, and Gurma doesn't get a chance to get up either. There's some kind of push in the back. You know, there's a lot of chaos and confusion going on. I don't think this is straight up as clear as just pointing to Albert and saying that she dropped her mark, but kind of everything that could go wrong went wrong, and I think the Dutch were very purposeful and intentional about that. So what changed after a goal? Well, I think absolutely nothing. The press looks the same here to me. Niswanger has the exact same problem that I pointed out earlier, so she's coming in a little too heavy. This is not great body language at all, and because of that, she has to stab the foot out, gets beat way early, way high, and we have the same problem. We're not really sure who's supposed to be picking up coverage, and it's just so much time and space in the box. US can't possess the ball. is the exact same thing. Nothing changes. Because of that, Nair's going to fake an injury. The US strategy is not, hey, let's change our tactics as soon as we go down a goal. So they're going to go reset here. And this cracked me up because everybody is running before the ref has even called folks off. But US are just going to use this time to talk through a couple small changes that they're going to implement very quickly to allow them to kind of get some control back. How can the US control more of the game? Well, it's going back to something that they are comfortable with. And what we know they're comfortable with is the tactics that they were executing during the Olympics. So there's an attempt to win the ball here. I think Yasmin Ryan, by the way, she had such a good game and just really executed instructions well. I don't know, she just looked so natural. It was great. But we're starting to see a difference here in this back line, the back structure during the offense. So let's take a look at it here. We're seeing more of a three-back compared to earlier. So we have Fox, Girma, and Davidson. We're going to have Girma hold back a little bit more, and you can see how much more space this kind of creates around here. The other really big indicator is that Niswanger is all the way up here. Her and Fox are not even anymore at all, and what this is going to do is going to stretch this line out a lot more. It's exactly what Davidson uses Niswanger for over here. Unfortunately, we're still seeing the same thing we saw earlier, which is that offensive chemistry is just a little bit off, and the timing of things is just not quite where it should be. I also caught a change on the set piece defense, and I don't know if this is indicative that they actually made this change at 30 minutes or if they just realized that they had actually executed something. Maybe, they didn't use the correct strategy that they'd wanted on the last one, but we're seeing the same setup here with a potential short look, but this time Fox is all the way over here. We're still going to see 1, 2, 3, 4 in the zone, but we can see the shape of them is a little bit different compared to last time. It was a very clear square. And then we've got more folks in the man coverage. To be honest, though, it's still the exact same problem. So we see Foxfair do a really good job covering her zone at the end. I mean, I think we're seeing that, the zone folks here are doing their job as much as they can, but it is really hard trying to delay people that are twice the size of you and just as fast. The US tweaked even more at halftime. Some managers and coaches don't like to do this. It can kind of be, showing a little bit of a sign of weakness, like you came out with the wrong strategy. I really like that Emma Hayes just, went for it and made some big changes here. So Sonnet is going to come on for Niswanger. They're actually going to push Davidson over to the left back position. It creates a much better size matchup on that really tall Dutch player that Niswanger was struggling with. Sonnet is going to take the right center back position, and we're going to push Girma to left center back, which is where most of the action has been. So it allows Girma to get into a better spot, and it means she's got two nice secure options either side of her. And then the other part is we saw Lynn Williams come on, who's going to go out wide, which means Lavelle is going to come inside. And actually the move to push Lavelle inside did actually happen before the half anyway. We're going to see how all the moving has helped put the US into a shape and a structure they're much more comfortable with. So Yasmin Ryan is now on the left side, maybe not exactly where she wants to be. We've got Lynn Williams over on the right side, and we see her really stretching that line. We've finally got a little bit more space, a little bit more time, and the connections are starting to build. Defensively, I think we also saw those changes pay off very quickly. Davidson, like I mentioned, is a much better size match for this player that she is going up against, but she also just had, I think, better body language, was able to contain and slow things down, and by slowing things down, it allows her teammates to coordinate quicker, and I think defensively that just looked a lot neater overall. I also think we did see a bit of a change on the press, so we're kind of going back to the base 4-4-2 without being influenced by the press as much. So we're going to watch Lynn Williams over here. So she's in this wide area, but she's leaving a decent amount of space. She's not, coming all up in on her player. This one's pulling, and so with that, Fox is coming as well. She does have to, but we can see overall that 4-4-2 looks much more compact to me. There's a lot less, like pulling of the shape by the Dutch, and they're just not allowing themselves to be manipulated as much. Now, we're still having some coverage problems, but I do think things look better and more comfortable. By the way, as a huge tackle from Davidson, we got to go back and give her credit. I'm not sure she actually even gets to the ball, but the point is, she's just coming in with a lot of physicality, and it was a much better matchup meeting the physicality that, oh man, I almost said Brazil, because it feels like the Olympic final all over again, but it's matching that same level of physicality that Brazil brought, and it's how they won that game, and the US just absolutely needed to do the same thing with the Netherlands. The US made several tactical changes. They made changes 30 minutes in. They made changes at the half. We're starting to see the payoff of those changes. There's still some choppiness, but things are just starting to look more calm. The U.S. are finally having more possession, more time on the ball. And this pass to Fox, this is starting to look like, some sort of play out of the Olympic playbook. They're just going back to what they're comfortable with. Are they still being, beaten on physical balls? Yes, but I think the desire, the will to win, kind of the belief started coming up a lot more as people were feeling comfortable in their roles. This is just starting to look like a different team now, about 60 minutes in. Now that the team is executing better against their game plan, you can be a bit more risky. And I think Hayes timed this perfectly, waiting until there was more control and then sending out just a huge burst of energy with 3 subs at once, especially because the Netherlands had not made any substitutions at this point. So this was a real game changer for the US. Also got to imagine there's just a whole lot of energy in this building around Johannes being there. So I think this was just a big momentum shift, but it was very pointed. I think waiting until this point in time, until things had stabilized for the team. And what we're going to see here is these subs just come in and do more of the same. They're not trying to execute anything different. They're just trying to get back to the same spot we were. Johannes doesn't win that cleanly the first time, but does a nice job on the counter press, just sends it back to Nair. And the team can just start executing their strategy a little bit better here. Same thing. Competes for that ball, doesn't win it, it's okay. Teams just keeping the compete level high, looking to push Netherlands out of their own half. And this is a really big thing that we hadn't seen much of until this point, is the US actually pushing the Netherlands back and giving themselves more breathing room. Creating space has impacts everywhere. It was not just, up the top half in the attacking area. Created space defensively as well by being able to move the Dutch more back and forth. And we can see here, finally, the US are having a little bit of time to pass back. They haven't given the Dutch enough time to get all up here in this space. Are things clean? No, they're still not perfectly executed, but there's just enough time and space for everybody to breathe, slow down, look for a good option. And people are looking much more available than they have previously. Availability was a problem before. Not a super clean win there, but again, it's the spacing allowing you to win the second ball. Great crossing, great finish. I love where Johannes is for a second opportunity. Just everything about it starts clicking at this point. And when we look at it, you see Fox call out here, you see Ryan get her head up. Williams is just aggressive about getting to the front of the net. The details are just done right. Consistent with what we saw earlier, instructions do not change when the score changes. So the US in this group of subs is going to keep executing the same game plan. So they're still looking to get up the pitch. They're still looking to create transitional opportunities. And this was, I think, a big part of killing that time off, was just making sure that the ball wasn't in their defensive area as much where they had struggled. Is this clean? Is it neat? No, it's still a little bit choppy, but it's just so much better having all these competitive moments be away from a US net. Emma Hayes must have been feeling really comfortable at this point, because she takes a chance on someone new, sends Ali Sentnor out for her first cap, and I really liked what I saw from her. It is 91 minutes into a game where the Dutch haven't had much rotation, but she fully took advantage of the opportunities that were afforded to her. Johannes, a little bit of a disconnect there, but again, she does a good job making sure that she plays this ball onside because Lynn Williams wasn't available. I just think things look nice. I think I can see a spot for Ali Sentnor in this team. She was combining really nicely with her teammates. And again, look, the Dutch are tired. I get it, but Sentnor is a smart player and takes advantage of the little opportunity that she has. I think she did really well with it. Overall, my favorite thing about this match was seeing the US make the adjustments that they needed to make. I think they were well timed, and it was nice to see that a lot of the issues in this match were because they were trying something new out. That's fine. They tried their best. You don't get the result you want, you change things. And it was really good seeing people go back to a base and reset. But I don't think things were perfect. Resetting was not enough to fix all of the problems. There was still some disconnect. There was still a little bit of, who's supposed to be picking this up. And I have to say, you can watch this, run it all the way back. I don't think Hirschfeld is, at fault here at all. I think Fox is way, way, way high up, and I think Hirschfeld does a very good job recognizing that and covering. It doesn't look great, but the one fantastic thing that I love that she does here is actually not blocking the shot when she realizes she can't, not stepping in there, not reaching, not stepping across. It means that if there was a shot, Nair is going to have a really clear look at it and there's not going to be a deflection. Super scary moment, but I think it was played right. As just a fun matchup to watch. I'm heading out to Singapore soon to meet my parents who live in Dubai. That might sound kind of nonsensical, but I grew up mostly in Singapore, so it's a nice neutral location for us. Does mean things are going to be pretty quiet here over the next 2-3 weeks, but it has been brought to my attention that I have not actually publicized the fact that I have a TikTok. I didn't originally do that because, there are different platforms, content's for a different audience, and I've really been trying to learn both platforms and try and make, good stuff that stands on its own. If you're comfortable with downloading TikTok, you need a little bit of a backlog of videos there. And I also typically push those out a little bit earlier than the YouTubes. I kind of use it to test the content that I want in the videos. The other thing, I have Instagram. I am so terrible about using it, but who knows? Vacation is probably a good time to post vacation pictures. So I'll put that link, all of the links below, if you want to follow along while I'm out. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see you next time.